Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Today I'm here with Laura Watson, and we were able to talk right before this, and I admire her. I envy her. She does a lot of things that I currently do as well, and so we were talking about that. And without further ado, I'm actually going to let Laura introduce herself, and then we'll go from there.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you today. I'm coming to you from Central Alberta. My name, as you said, is Laura Watson. My company is Venture Coaching. I'm actually located 2 hours north of Calgary today is sunny Alberta. So it's great to be here. I have been coaching small business owners and C-level executives for just over 20 years, having come out of a social work background and was in the nonprofit sector for about 12 years. And then decided that I wanted to help people move into their future instead of resolve their past. Nothing wrong with that, but I saw a new opportunity for myself.
I love the way that you put that, because so many people resolve their past versus move into the future, because a lot of people have a hard time focusing on the future and looking towards the future because they're so focused on the past. And quite frankly, there's nothing you can do about the past. And there's nothing you can do about
Freud. Yeah, Freud and the psychoanalytic model came up through the 60s and 70s and what have you. And so there's definitely that framework out there and lots of ideas around needing to resolve all that. But you're right, we really can't do anything to change the past. The past is a series of events that got us to where we are today, and where we can really have a lot more control is thinking about what do I want for the future and what steps can I take towards creating that. And that's a way more interesting conversation.
Well, why don't we talk about that specifically? Because obviously we're entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. And so I really would love to be able to focus on what should women do so that we can have more successful businesses. And so you're talking mainly to entrepreneurs. What is your advice? And you talk about there's a secret to a business plan, executing a business plan. So can we talk about that? And then we'll go into the next question.
Absolutely. So first off, have one. I can't tell you how many business owners I've talked to at every stage of business, startup, well-established, and they're not following a business plan. They're just winging it, kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And so they're not focused, and they're going on off all kinds of different tangents and just wasting a whole lot of time and energy. So first step is, yes, have a business plan, and it doesn't have to be complicated. There is an awesome, simple 2-page business plan that I use. It comes out of a book called Traction. Traction is awesome. It's a follow-up, not a direct follow-up, but it is a follow-up from a book that came out years ago called The E-Myth. The E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth, and talks about how lots of service providers and practitioners say, hey, you know what? I've got great skills, so why don't I start my own business? And then the E-Myth talks about, okay, if you're going to start a business, have processes, have systems so that you can scale and duplicate. So it talks about what to do, but it doesn't talk about how to do it. Traction is the how. And so the secret sauce you mentioned is really, we have to know what we want to do, which is the business plan. Then we have to think through, how are we going to do it? Those are the action steps of execution. And then the most important thing is, when are we going to do it? Because that's another place my clients struggle. Once we have the plan, then they have their goals set, but they rarely think about how are they actually going to achieve those goals. So I like to reverse engineer a business plan. And that's what Traction helps you do as well. We think about where you want to be sort of 5 to 10 years from now, and we reverse engineer, where do you want to be 3 years from now, and then 1 year from now. And then once we know where you want to be a year from now, we break those goals and priorities down into quarterly segments. What do you want to focus on each quarter?
Mhm.
Once we have the priorities or the goals set for the quarter, then we've got 12 weeks where we can think about what actions am I going to take this week aligned with the goals for this quarter. And then when in my calendar am I going to set aside time to make sure I actually take those actions?
Right.
So when we have clarity about what, how, and when, it's amazing what we can accomplish.
I love that. And there's a book. Are you familiar with the 12-week year?
That's exactly. So that's what
Okay.
I use as a follow-up
Okay.
to that
Okay.
business plan. Because yes, that's where the scorecard comes
Yeah.
into play, and we can actually track our execution. And for people like me who can self-admittedly, I can get off on tangents at times.
Right.
That scorecard in the 12-week year is a great tool for keeping us on track throughout the quarter.
And I think that it's important because you can do all this on your own. You absolutely 100% can. I know it, you know it. However, how many people are actually good without a coach? I mean, seriously, because it's just like a professional basketball team or I don't care, football team. If you don't have somebody saying, practices at this time, I expect you to be there on time or this is going to happen, then you're not going to be as successful. Nobody can just coach themselves. It's really, really difficult. You have to have somebody be accountable and make sure that you're being held to what you say you're going to do because it's
Absolutely.
really difficult. And then, there's also the mind game that, well, I didn't accomplish what I said I was going to. And so then it's like, okay, well, now that might as well go do this, and it's not, it's like, no, we're human. It's okay. Let's get back on track. And how can we do that? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's accountability is huge for keeping us on track. And then, like you said, the mindset.
yeah,
And where a coach can also be helpful is in uncovering the blind spots
right.
because we're in our own way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
and our own perspective, and we don't realize that there's things that we're missing. They're called blind spots for a reason.
Yeah.
So a good coach will hear through the listening of someone's language, can hear the mindset in behind it and can start to see and uncover those blind spots with their clients. And with those blind spots revealed,
Mm-hmm.
then again, amazing progress can be made and lots of mistakes can be avoided.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So getting back to the other question, with a business owner, what are some common mistakes that you see them make?
Well, I was thinking about these questions in preparation for today, and especially your audience, who I believe tend to be women and moms.
Right.
And so in addition to having a business plan, one of the things that is not rocket science, but is one of the things that gets dismissed easily is self-care. Right. I just see so many clients and women in particular, but men too, just go, are building a business, taking care of their team, coming home, taking care of their families, and they're not taking care of themselves.
Right.
And they're just getting burned out.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of people say, oh, well, I don't have time to take care of myself. I just can't do it because I've got all these other things. We have to stop and really prioritize that from ourselves. And I talk to my clients about the idea of us being a well.
Right.
And if we're always drawing from the
Yeah.
well and giving, that well is going to run dry.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I've been very careful about as I've run my businesses and raised my family is doing those things to take care of myself, because I have to practice what I preach.
And it's so easy. And here's a good example. I literally just had a conversation with my husband. I'm pointing because that's the door. But I had a conversation with my husband, and I had a friend that called me up this morning, and we talked for probably an hour. And I thought, why did I do that? I have so many things I need to accomplish today. And she called originally because she wanted my help on something where she's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm going to make and so I thought, wait a second, I just not wasted, but I just spent an hour talking with her, helping her make money. And yet that was not helping me at all. And so the self-care, I think it goes not only to taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're enjoying our lives and doing stuff, but it's also our time. Like we
Hmm.
really need to, for me, I did not take care of myself for that hour. I had so many things I should have done that would have made me money that
Yeah,
I didn't do because I was talking with her. And it's not that I shouldn't talk with her. I love her and we have a great time. But after business hours, like, hey, can I talk with you about this later? Um,
exactly.
we're getting caught
Self-care
up.
is really intertwined with boundaries,
Yes, that's the
right?
word I was going to use.
Yeah,
Yep.
having boundaries, taking care of ourselves. Yeah, absolutely help your girlfriend if that's what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Right.
And make it a win-win. Have
Yeah.
it happen at a time that works for you as well as her and doesn't take your focus away from the things that are important during your workday.
Yep. Yep. So moms, listen, if it's your children, if it's your best friend, because it's great to talk with them, but I think it's important to put time limits on conversations like that during the day when those are our work hours. And then, yeah, let's go hang out or let's go to dinner, or let's go do something later. I'd love to have
Absolutely.
more of a conversation with you. So anyway.
Even with business partners, I had a
Yes.
coaching colleague early in my career for a number of years,
Mhm.
and he was a outward thinker. He
Right.
needed to process his thoughts, and he would just call me up and just start blah 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 when I'm in the middle of something.
Yeah.
Right. And he's my colleague. We're building business
Right.
together. So I wanted to be present to
Mhm.
him. But at the same time, he just took me off of this other priority.
Yeah.
And so I had to put a boundary in place with him. It's like, okay, when you call first, please ask me if I'm in the middle of something.
Yep. It's
Because
true.
if I am, we're going to have to schedule a conversation. And then, second, when we do have a conversation, let's have an agenda. This free form, all over the place
I
thinking
love that.
doesn't get us anywhere. So let's tighten things up a little bit and make sure our conversations are purposeful. So
Yeah.
again, just other examples of creating boundaries.
Well, and I think there's this little thing. Have you ever heard of the Pomodoro technique?
I have, yes.
So it's like, okay, and you don't need to tell anybody this, but yeah, I will give them 10 minutes or I'm going to give them 5 minutes. And when this timer's up, I've never done that. So don't think that I would ever do that to somebody. But, if you have a hard time with boundaries, then put a time limit on it and set
Mhm.
it. So
An interesting thing on that point is one of my coaches, all of our work was over the phone. We weren't doing Zoom at the time. And she had very clear boundaries on our sessions. And I could, in every session, in the background, at the 5 minute mark before our time was up, I could hear a timer going off. And so it was her clue, but it was also a clue to me, like, oh yeah, okay, 5 minutes, wrap up kind of thing.
wow.
So we can absolutely put those boundaries in place.
And sometimes we need to, especially like take an inventory of the people you're working with and talking with. And are they time suckers or are they,
Mhm.
conversation I've had a lot with my kids. Okay, so you have a thing called spin selling.
Yeah.
So what is that and how does it work?
I wish I had created it, but I didn't.
You know what?
So
It's good to borrow too.
oh, you know what? Yes, that's something I've learned is that I do not have to reinvent the wheel. There
Mhm.
are amazing tools out there. So that's one of the things that I have done over these 20 years of coaching is found the best tools
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that I can bring those tools and help my clients implement them faster.
Right.
So Spin Selling is a great book because especially when I first started coaching, I had to find my own clients. I
Yeah.
came out of nonprofit where clients were handed to you. And
Right.
all of a sudden, that wasn't the case anymore. So I had to figure out how to sell. And I was scared and intimidated and freaked out. And I had all these stories about what selling was
Mhm.
and that I was pushing myself on people and needing to prove myself. And boy, oh boy, did I struggle. And I just kind of inched along for the first few years until I discovered this book called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Now, I'll warn you, it's a very dry read. So I'll give you the Coles Notes version.
Mhm.
If you're in a service type of business, that it can work for products as well, but especially if you're selling services of some kind, spin selling is an acronym for how to have the sales conversation.
Okay.
And so the acronym is S for situation.
Mhm.
So we need to understand our prospect's situation first. We need to ask questions. What are they dealing with? What's going on in their world? And just get them sharing their story with us. How did they get to where they are today? What's going on? So we first need to understand situation. Then P in spin stands for pain or problem. What's the challenge that they're dealing with? And so I will often change the word pain to challenge. So once I understand someone's situation, I'll ask them, so what kind of challenges are you dealing with? What's stopping you from getting you where you want to be? So, and they'll share that. Then, and a very important question to ask next is the I question, which stands for implication. The implication of not solving this problem. Because lots of people know I got a challenge, I'm kind of stuck, but they're not really thinking about what's going to happen if they don't fix this, right? And most of the time it boils down to time and money. You know, they're going to lose money. They're going to not close the next deal. They're going to take much longer to build their business, and time is valuable, obviously. And when people get connected to the implication of not solving their problem, then they're way more interested in investing in solving the problem.
Yep, that's true.
So then the N stands for need. And that's when we talk about, okay, so if this is your situation, this is the challenge you're up against, here's what's going to happen if we don't solve this problem. Here's what I, as your potential service provider, think you need. Here's how I can help. And once you've had that conversation with people, I find that there's no convincing anybody, there's no pushing, there's no sense of sliminess. You're really showing up from a helping perspective, helping someone think through what they're dealing with, what they need is help, demonstrating how you can help them. And then at that point, they're ready to engage with you and really go to that next step and either take a free sample from you or buy whatever service you're selling.
I love that because I'm a huge acronym person because you can remember it that way. And so it's been the situation to work for you. And I'm totally going to use that. That's fantastic.
It transformed my sales conversations.
Yeah.
When, I was maybe closing, 20 to 30% of my prospects when people were first asking me about coaching, because I was taught and trained with coaching to, once you know your skills, then you offer a free coaching session and that will automatically convince somebody that coaching is valuable and they'll sign up. Well, no, that doesn't bridge the gap.
Right.
It's not enough. So part of our job is helping people bridge the gap from where they are now to where they want to be in the future. Right. And walking them through that spin conversation is a way to do that. When I applied that model, my conversion rates went to about 90%. So huge difference.
Wow. That's great. Okay, so delegation. This is something that I used to be horrible about, and quite frankly, not the greatest still, because it's hard to trust people sometimes. And so studies have shown that a lot of businesses will falter within the first 5 years. If you can get past that 5-year mark, then that's golden. 8 years is even better. 10 years is fantastic. But as a solopreneur, it's easy to last a little longer because you're not having to pay people once you start taking people on. So there's got to be some systems. There's got to be processes. So delegation, how can people be more effective with that?
So effective delegation sits with us as the delegator.
Yeah.
And there's a very important distinction between delegation and abdication. Yeah. Lots of people think, okay, go do this. And they will kind of, and then they're like, oh, thank God, I've just passed that on to somebody else. Now I can go focus over here. That's abdication. You just kind of handed it off to somebody and now you're not doing, you probably haven't handed it off in a proper conversation, first of all, and then you've just kind of handed it off and expecting a perfect result to come back. So effective delegation sits in how we have the conversation. And again, another great book out there that I love to reference people to. It's written by Donna Gennett. And it's called, If You Want It Done Right, You Don't Have to Do It Yourself.
I like that.
It's a 1-hour read and comes with cheat sheets. I love it. And really, when we're delegating, we have to be very clear about the task that we're delegating. We have to be clear about the amount of authority we're delegating. Sometimes it's just a task. Sometimes it's decision-making authority that we're delegating. So we have to be clear about those distinctions when we're having that conversation. And then we have to set timelines or check-ins. So if we're delegating a project or something that may take a month, then what we really need to do is schedule a check-in in 2 weeks. Get a progress report. Where are things at? Are we still on track? Are things aligned? Or has something gone off the rails that we have time to fix before that deadline? And then most importantly, when we're having that delegation conversation, is lots of people that we're delegating to will nod, say, yep, got it, and they don't got it.
Right.
And they don't got it because we haven't been clear. And they feel embarrassed to step up and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not clear on this. Because they want to seem competent in your eyes.
Right.
So what we need to do is we have to ask people to active listen us, which means when we're having that delegation conversation, we need to ask the person, okay, what have you heard me say? Or ask, what is your understanding of this assignment? So that the person we're delegating to can paraphrase, their understanding back to us. That's really the only way that we can confirm, yes, this person understands what I need them to understand, and now we can tell them, okay, go. Or we're going to realize they don't quite get it the way we need them to get it, and we can add additional clarification. Or in their paraphrasing, we may realize, you know what, I missed a detail. And then we have opportunity to share the additional information, ask for that active listening and paraphrasing back again. Once we're certain we've created clarity with the person we're delegating to, then we can send them to go off to do whatever we need them to do.
That is so true. And I think one more step to that is, I mean, we don't have time to get into this, but the leadership styles. And so, you have this dominant person who my husband actually just got out of a work situation from this. She was like micromanaged. She just wanted to know every single step of everything, even. And so he's confused because for like a year that didn't exist. And now she wants literally every single step. So it's that type to a laissez-faire type leader where it's like, you know what, do your own thing and then we'll check in, or I want to know later. And so also making sure that your person that you delegate to, what type of check-ins do you want and information, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my last question, which is nothing to do with what we talked about, but it is being a mom, right? And so this can go for any age group. And so when I say this, I don't want you to think of it as a brand new mom. Okay. But say that you're sitting on a park bench and this pregnant woman comes up to you and she sits down next to you. What advice, having been through what you've been through as a mother, what advice would you give to her as she's going to be rearing this little baby? So any stage of the child's life, what advice would you give?
Again, back to the resources in the books. The best book I ever read, and I do not say this lightly because it transformed my marriage, it transformed my parenting, it's transformed all of my relationships. It's a book called Parent Effectiveness Training, PET, and it's a communication book. So talking to a new mom, I would suggest that she read it because so many of it, we parent the way we were parented or the opposite.
Right.
And many of us grew up in power-based families where the parent had the power. It was my rule, my house, my rules sort of approach. Or we had a brick wall parent who was very strict, and then another parent who more laissez-faire, and there was nothing sort of in the middle. And when we grow up in power-based households, our children will react in one of three very predictable ways. They are going to fight it, which means when they get older or become teenagers, they're going to power struggle with us. They're going to flee it, which means they're going to run away, whether it's to their bedroom or to the street, or they're going to submit. And when they submit, they just kind of go with the flow and go along with it. And they may be seen from our perspective as the perfect child, but really bits of their soul are dying because they're not actually being who they need to be as individuals.
Right.
PET teaches us how to communicate effectively with our children, how to coach our children versus parent our children. And because really by the age of 5, our kids don't need a parent anymore, believe it or not. They need a coach.
Yeah.
They need someone who can ask them questions, help them create clarity about what they want, whether it's whether they want to have a certain friend in the schoolyard, or whether they want to buy a particular toy. Right. Our role really is to coach, to help them get clear. What do they want in their world? How can they go about creating that for themselves? And how can we show up as facilitators to our children in their problem solving and not fixers of their problems? Because lots of our moms want to get in there and just fix things for our kids. And we can't, and we shouldn't, because if we do that, we actually prevent them from becoming whole and complete, self-sufficient adults. So true. I love that. Like I said, it transformed all of the relationships in my life. And if I was sitting on a park bench with a pregnant woman and had an opportunity to give her a bit of advice, that would be it.
I love that, because you think about it and you tell the kids what to do. They turn 18, they move out of the house, and they're like, what do I do now? I'm not ready for that. So that's great advice. Thank you. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they find you?
Well, I'm pretty much all over the place. The easiest place is my website, which is venturecoaching.ca. And I'm on Facebook under Laura Watson. You'll see a picture of me in a dance costume because I'm also a competitive country dancer.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's how you'd find me there. And of course on LinkedIn as well. I'm not plastered all over social media. Those are definitely the main ones. And my email, simple laura@venturecoaching.ca. So those are really the easiest ways.
Well, thank you. Well, Laura, you have given us a wealth of knowledge in such a short time. And so, thank you so much for coming on. And I think Unbreakable Moms, from how to coach your children to how to be coached in a business, if you are looking for more specific progress in your company, please reach out to Laura. Thank you so much.
Well, and thank you for having me today. I love to be able to have an opportunity to bring value to others. I hope that this has been valuable today, and I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.